Hello and welcome to the Art of Teaching the Whole Child in a Pandemic, Cultivating Trauma-Sensitive Practices for Resilience. This is your Module 7 End-of-Year Review and Renew. So after this entirely long year, you have made it to the month of May, where we can take a moment to take a deep breath to celebrate, to say that we made it this year in your route of having 4 habits that stick. You are now taking a moment to review, renew, reflect how things went this year, on what habits you cultivated, and to celebrate the fact that you took 2 key factors for resilience from the National Scientific Council on the Child and made them habits for you. That is one, stable relationship with a committed and supportive adult, and the ability to develop a sense of predictability in and contribution to their environment. Those 2 resilience factors you have converted to habits that you have stuck with this year, and you have charted your own course to have those 4 habits, and you did it. You really did. Like, you made it this year. Even if you don't have all 4 habits with you right now, today and yesterday, you did it, and you made what you repeatedly do a habit. And that's the key. Excellence is not one conversation with your students, but what you are repeatedly doing for them and those habits that you've cultivated. So I want to take a moment to celebrate how far you've come, and to recognize that you took the habit plan recipe that we shared at the beginning of the year about cue, routine, and reward, and you've turned it into ways to increase your wise feedback or intentional greetings, mindful focus or common ground, your student voice or choice, and anticipating their needs and leveraging the time that you have. You've done that this year, and it's so awesome to see some of the impact that you're seeing, that some of you are seeing in your classrooms. Like, one of you mentioned that the tone is set as my students come in with the intentional greetings. They are engaged and are persevering through challenging decoding work. And one third grade teacher said about the student voice habits, wait time has had a positive effect on all students. One teacher said about student choice that I've noticed a big difference in work production and quality from my struggling math students. And then about leverage time and mindful focus, one social studies teacher in middle school said about her mindful focus habit. In all 4 classes, the discussion was among the best and most focused we have had all year. And then in terms of continuing to have those common ground in our classrooms, one special educator said, I am not having to remind them as frequently about classroom procedures. And that's really cultivating the connection, because you're not making those withdrawals from that piggy bank, and we're keeping that positivity in the classroom as much as we can. So I'd encourage you to take a moment to reflect. What difference did your habits make this year? What impact have you seen? Take a moment to write that down and to celebrate that and acknowledge it before we move forward. So let's dive into Module 7. The objectives for this module is to review your personal progress in using your resilience routines, to review the process phases that you've or have arrived at for developing those routines, and to renew your commitment to using habit planning. So you're gonna need about 20 minutes, your clear headspace, your printed or digital journal, so that you can do steps 1 through 4 of this module, first of which is tuning in to this video. And now the second and third steps are really aiming to have us reflect, to celebrate your most powerful habit. Because chances are you've got a variety of habits at different phases that we've gone through. Remember at the beginning of the year, we noticed our pits. We took a moment to pause and reflect on what our pits are right now, so that we can then plan habits around that throughout the year. And we're continuing to notice those pits, and then making efforts to stick to those strategies, stick to those habits. And eventually, you probably have some that have become a little more automatic, and they're becoming routines. And on your pulse chart, they're looking pretty good, or you're just in general, you don't even have to think about it. It just has become a part of your everyday routines. And that's really exciting to notice and reflect on. So we want to find out, what is the most powerful one for you, and where are the other ones at? So let's take a moment to reflect on a scale of 0 to 10, to rate each of your habits and where they're at. So from 9 and 10 out of 10 is habitual, using it daily, maybe almost daily at a 7 or 8. A 4 or 6 is about using it at least weekly. And then if it's less than weekly, and we'd say that's not really a habit, but it's something to keep an eye on. So we're going to take a moment to take stock of your deep breaths that you chose to do self-care with, maybe the movement breaks, maybe those are solid. They're at a 9 out of 10. But the mindful check-ins with the bell going off every so often, that's almost daily. It's like more like every other day that you're doing that. And maybe the do now is right in there as well, a few times a week maybe. And then finally, maybe your fist to five is just not really a habit right now, and that's okay, because we're trying to have these four habits that stick. But at the end of the day, they're all going to fall in different places. But it's important to take a moment to reflect and reflect on how you've come this year, where you're at, where are those habits. So take a moment to say, my deep breaths at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. How often am I following through on that? Is that a habit or not yet? And then taking stock of your other strategies. So maybe the praise around that you chose at the beginning of the year, for when a student repeatedly engages in that disruptive behavior, you're praising around and noticing that that student's discontinuing that behavior, you're avoiding that power struggle, you're praising the models. So you're really invested in that habit, but it's kind of more on the occasional side. So taking a moment to rank on a 0 to 10 scale, where are these habits falling, and then go through the rest of your strategies. Where are they falling right now? How well have you been able to stick to them? And if you'd like to use your pulse chart, if you have been using that, don't forget to take a look at that potentially on page 2 out of 3 at the top left. You can click these little arrows to see more graphs that show you the entire year, your progress for the entire year, and you can toggle the strategy to see how that changes your results. There's also on page 3 out of the 3, you can click this arrow again, and you'll see a little comparison here. So we're able to identify your most powerful habit at the top here, because it's probably among one that you've used most often and has had the biggest impact on your students' engagement, predictability, and connection. And so take a look at that and try to figure out which one is your most powerful habit if you do have that tool. I do want to emphasize that as you think about these, you're probably going to notice some of the strategies that you're not using so well. It's very human, very much human nature right now to notice and cling on to, I'm not doing that one, or I'm not doing this one as often as I'd like. Or start thinking, I just must not care enough. I guess I just don't have it within me. Maybe if I found the right motivation to do these strategies. But I just want you to keep calm and stop blaming yourself. This is not about you. Research shows us that a lot can hinder our habit change, whether that's poor cues, new or complex routines, like all of the hybrid learning that you've been doing this year, distractions, like pandemics and racism and elections, and it goes on and on. So don't blame yourself. At this point, what we're going to do is reflect and celebrate what did happen, what did stick, what was your most powerful habit this year in terms of being able to stick to it and it making a difference for your students. So then we're going to take a moment to celebrate that, to recognize, maybe it was written into my lesson plans, and I've done it before, so that's what made it easy. It was obvious because it was written into my lesson plans. I knew exactly when I was going to do it. It was easy because I've done it before, and I found it rewarding because it had pretty quick effects on students. And so, think about the random selection would check a lot of these boxes for me. That I write it into those lesson plans. Done it before, so it's not really that hard. And it had a quick effect on all the students. But check off as many of the powers of the habit as you can to see what made this powerful habit powerful. What made it stick for you this year? What made it easy? What made it obvious? What made it rewarding? And it can be any of the strategies that we've talked about, any of them. And the key here is to think through, how did I use the power of habit? How did I lean into the cue? Instead of saying, I'm going to do that strategy, you decided, this is when I'm going to do the strategy, and this is what I'm going to notice from my students and look for. And so how are you taking away and how are you applying the power of habit going forward in your own self-care and your own professional growth? What's the takeaway for you regarding how to use habits as a framework for which you make change in your own life and in your own professional growth? Then my final video question for you, after all of these questions, is how will you celebrate? Because you have made it this far this year. We're almost there. The light is there at the end of the tunnel, and we're almost home for the summer. And I'm excited to share with you this year and being able to reflect on all of these steps you've taken to notice, use your reflection to notice your most powerful habit of the year. And I want to celebrate that with a group, with a one-on-one meeting with me and a breakout group. So I'm excited to share with you, and your next steps are to upload and share the powers of habit, whichever of those factors led to this habit success for you and it sticking, and how you're going to celebrate. And so leaning into those cue routine rewards, and we're going to continue to discuss those. Instead of a video next week, you're going to sign up for a 30-minute celebration breakout group where we talk about how you made it stick. And so we can learn from each other's lessons in that. And then book a one-on-one coaching session with me, which you can do with your own phone through this QR code, so that you can continue to discuss how you're going to make this stick and how you're going to use this going forward as a framework through which you continue to grow as a professional. If you want help with any of this, if you have questions, concerns, anything that's not clear, do not hesitate to shoot me an email or sign up for office hours with this QR code here. All right, I look forward to seeing you in your breakout groups, and I'm excited to celebrate with you how you've made those habits stick this year.